Center if Frank Carini is around the corner.
I am.
Thanks for coming in today.
Of course.
And you know,
Am I on the hot list or not the hot list? I think I know the answer.
Do you want
to
to? You know, I can lobby for you. No, I joke.
I don't lobby would help. I know what list I'm on.
No. Why would you be on the not hot list?
Look at me.
It's very warm in here. We've got the AC cranking, but it's still so hot here in Go Local Studios. We've had a hot lineup today. We had the commencement speaker at URI.
It's gotten a little rough now.
No, this is great because it's a perfect timing, as one of the pieces that you wrote for EcoRI this week was about beaches and beach health, and this was, again, the report of the bay that you've been breaking down. And I just want to go over the headline. Beach closures trending downwards. This is looking since back to 2000, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And from like 2003 to 2000. First of all, before I forget, I really enjoyed the stories on the, what's the printing place that you guys have been doing? Or you
Vistaprint?
Yeah, those are really good stories. So that's the kind of journalism that's
well, you know, we
so
talk to everybody.
No,
we
it's
talk
great.
to everyone.
Those are great stories. But anyway,
okay.
The beach
beaches.
stories.
It's a beach. It's a beach day.
It's beach weather is upon us. From like 2003 to 2010, 11, it was tough. There was a lot of beach closures. It's gotten better, and the state of the beaches, because we're controlling stormwater runoff better, whether engineering trickery or rain gardens, rain barrels, whatever. We are doing a better job of that, and there is less beach closures, but we're winning these battles. But I think in general we're losing the war.
Do you?
I do. I mean, the report that I was breaking down that the Narragansett Bay Estuary Program did, I mean, they didn't say that, but if you look at the development and our land use patterns and stuff, we're putting a lot of stress on these water resources, and we're able to keep some beaches, better off than others. But the urban core, the upper Narragansett Bay Estuary, the urban beaches take a beating.
And which are those? Which
Bristol Town Beach, Barrington Town Beach. I mean, there's a list of high concern beaches, and those are some of them.
Again, you can check this out on EcoRI.
Oakland Beach. So obviously the beaches in the urban areas are going to have more stress on them than the ones not.
Can that ever change? I mean, or is it just a result of old infrastructure and the inability? Is it going to remain systemic?
Yes, I mean, especially in the urban core, because you have all this runoff. Look at all the pavement outside the studio here. I mean, there's so much impervious surface throughout the urban corridor that, it's all that water. Then you have the, people, and then there's all the wastewater treatment facilities, overflows with those. So there's a lot of stress on our water resources.
So what can we do?
Put a rain garden in your backyard, get a rain barrel, try to hold it longer, don't use it. It's a complicated issue because it's human activity. There's built up land. Better land use management would be the best way to do it.
Do you think, organizations, you continue to write about the environment with EcoRI, Save the Bay continues their work in the community, but having the Bay gone from where it had once been to a much better place over a short period of time in relative human history, but by the concerted effort by strong environmental activists and organizations such as Save the Bay, do you think folks have a sense, and we're talking just the average folk, that it was like, oh, the Bay's fine, things are good, we don't have to worry. Should they worry?
Yeah, I think the Bay is much better than it was 40 years ago, and largely the work of Save the Bay and other advocates, but there's different challenges now. Yeah, we don't have the industrial pollution from the jewelry district and all that, but we have different pharmaceuticals, we have personal care products full with chemicals. We don't know what that, 40 years from now we're going to be saying, oh, we did a great job saving the Bay or not saving the Bay from all those things. There's a lot of nasty stuff that's going into not just Narragansett Bay, but all our water resources. That how are they going to mix with the tides and the sun, and what are all these chemicals that pharmaceuticals and personal care products, how are they all going to mix and match up in there and it's a big soup? I mean, we don't know yet. Nobody's done the studying, nobody has the money, and we don't research it. So it's going to come back to bite inevitably us. And bite us.
So things, as you said, we're looking at the beaches, beach closures trending downwards, but that's a little false positive.
No, I mean, yes, there's some of like Easton's Beach and Atlantic Beach, First and Second Beach down in Aquidneck Island, they're doing the UV facility that's in there. Those beach closures are way down. That costs like $8 or $9 million to put that UV thing in. It doesn't always work right, but it has helped. So those two beaches were pretty bad beaches. They were like the high concern ones back in the early 2000s, 2010. They're getting better. So there's progress, but who says it's not going to come back to have problems at those beaches?
So
I don't think we've solved the problem.
Continue to be vigilant, continue to point to the issue, as you do on EcoRI. Was this the third in the series of the report?
Yeah, the last one. Yeah.
This was the last one. How many hours do you think you took pouring through that report?
Actually, not that much, because I give kudos to Narragansett Bay Estuary Program. it's a report you can read. It's not full of jargon. Your head's not going to explode. It's actually pretty well done. So
Well,
not that long, actually.
I don't know if
They
your
did all
head
the
won't
work.
explode. My head maybe won't explode, and that's why it's a great benefit to have you break it down, kind of point out the finer points of it. So if you hadn't checked this out, go to EcoRI. If you like going to the beach, concerned about the health of the bay, it's a must read. It is a big resource that most Rhode Islanders take advantage of, but shouldn't be taken advantage of.
No, we got to think about it. I mean, have an impact. That's the most important resource we have is the bay, as everybody says. So it's.
Let's talk about something else, and it's not your piece, but it was on EcoRI this week, and whether or not you can speak to it or as much or as not. Some electronic monitoring on fishing boats, if you said the piece. Now this is to check to make sure that the catch size is adequate so that there's more monitoring again for the health of the fisheries, that it's actually kind of caught up with 2017 and not depending on sort of human oversight and human error. Do you think this is the way that it's trending and able to, again, keep tabs on what's actually going on in the waters?
Yes, before you had to have a person, an extra person on the boat that was an observer. So, I mean, these fishing boats, they're working boats. So that's a person taking up space, and you have to feed the person. I guess you can throw them overboard. I guess, but you have to feed the person, take care of the
Here's
person.
a can of tuna.
And a lot of people, so yeah, it's better. This is better, better way to do it than a person. But the thing that's tough is like the government now makes the fisheries pay for these fishermen pay for this monitoring. Like, but you don't have on land that doesn't happen. Like
To self-monitor yourself,
Yeah.
to say, measure your carbon footprint output.
Yeah, there's somebody at a meatpacking facility, USDA person. The facility's not paying for that person, but yet the fisheries have to pay for that person. So that's kind
Does
of
that- I mean-
this technology, which is cheaper than a person. And I'm sure it'll have some bumps and bruises, but it's the better way to do it, certainly. And the Nature Conservancy's a big part of making this happen here in Maine and
A
Rhode Island
few
and
boats
Mass.
have it on.
3 boats in Rhode
yeah.
Island. I know they've done it in Mass and Maine too. I think it was more boats than 3 in each. So there's boats out there in New England that have this, but there's only there's more than those 3 boats in Rhode Island that are fishing.
Yeah, so it's just it's a pilot test, sort
Right.
of, if you will.
Right.
What do you have to say? I mean, it's constantly sort of in the news, the sort of push-pull balance of fishermen trying to make a living, where the fish stocks are, and kind of the role of government. Do you think the balance is there right now in terms of, or does it sort of wax and wane? Does this type of oversight need to happen to make sure that the seas, remain viable with fish stocks? Or is it a kind of constant tug and pull between industry and environmentalism?
Well, it's needed because it's like any other business. You're going to have the fishermen that are going to abuse the law, and you're going to have the fishermen that are going to abide by it, and other ones that are going to get run over because they're going to, they're abiding by what's going on. They're doing it properly, and then people that aren't doing it properly. So yes, we do, but fisheries management is easily the most controversial and also the most complicated issue that EcoRI News has covered, I've ever covered in my life.
Well, you
It
start
is
saying
really
something
complicated.
easily. I'm like, how is this easy? Then you're like, it's easily the most complicated.
It's really complicated. The fish shares and catch shares, and it's a complicated problem that there has to be monitoring, there has to be guidelines and regulations, but it's just so complicated. So I don't have a good answer to say.
I don't think
I know we need to watch it, and it's, like I said, there's fishermen that follow the rules, and there's ones that don't, just like any other industry or business.
So that was an interesting piece. Again, check it out on EcoRI. Speaking of measuring and counting, did you read the piece about the ant?
I did. I read everything. I'm the one that edits everything. I read it all.
The ants. It was a professor at Providence College.
James Waters.
Looking to do sort of a survey of specifically ants. What they did at Providence College, 16 variety. I would have no clue. Kate, how many ant varieties are there in Rhode Island?
Yeah.
4.
Professor Waters says it's about 100.
Wow.
But they didn't do the trees. They just did what was on the ground. So that was just Providence College campus. So they want to do the whole state. So I don't know how they would do that, but that's why they're studying that. But yeah, that was a fascinating read.
Oh, it's interesting. Being in 2017, some things, there's a lot of scientific advancements in terms of research and methods, but sometimes I think it's still rolling up your sleeves, getting out there, collecting, literally getting the ants and finding out the data. Is there just still something to be said for tried and true methods?
Yeah, they had the little pool of soapy water, and they catch them and identify them and whatever, catalog them.
So like catch and release the ants?
I think they do. I don't know if they. I don't know. That's a good question. Probably the ones that are allowed to let go, but they don't have to kill them. But I don't know if the soapy water kills them. But there's a lot of them out there. But they're a fascinating insect, ants. I mean, maybe the next creature that'll take over the planet. I don't know.
They've made movies about that.
Yes.
Ant-Man, things of that
I didn't see
nature.
that one, but back in the old days.
Now, one of the things that you guys have written on before, and it wasn't written about recently, but the situation with the bees. But, again, this is maybe taking you way off topic here, but, I've got friends who are beekeepers, but there's all this concern about the decline of the bee population and what that might mean. What are we seeing now? I mean, there clearly seems to be a lot of attention being paid to it. Do they have any more sense? Is it, pesticide-based? And can we turn this trend around?
Yeah, Rhode Island, the colony collapse disorder, what you're talking about, I've done stories on this, none this year or in the past year, last summer I guess they did, but they never seen really colony collapse disorder in Rhode Island per se, but obviously there's concern when you're throwing pesticides around, spraying it around, it's going to harm the bees. It's a fact. It's going to harm anything. It kills anything. So that is a problem, but the beekeepers here are less concerned about that than they are about it. Also, the beekeepers that don't do a good job, and that's where the fungus is or whatever.
Really?
Start out one beehive that isn't taken care of properly, and then it can
Okay.
spread to another hive. So I don't know if it's a fungus, a virus, combination of both.
Yeah.
But there's
That's
more
their big
concern
concern.
than the colony collapse, the bigger colony collapse disorder that we're seeing in other places, and that has a lot to do with trucking bees around the country, from Florida to California to Georgia, trucked all around.
Well, keeping an
Stressing
eye on
out.
all creatures, big and small, all things having to do with the environment. Anything you're working on in the coming week you want to give us a little preview to, or are you going to keep us on our toes?
I got to keep it secret. We don't have the secrets.
You got to come here and pull the veil back on all things environmental going on here in Rhode Island. Frank Carini, editor at EcoRI. Check it out for the best of environmental journalism here in Rhode Island. So I appreciate your coming
thank
in
you.
every Friday to talk about what's going on. Great website. Check it out. Make
Thank
sure to
you.
support it. And we'll talk next
Yeah,
week.
enjoy the weekend.
Okay, I'll let you go around the
All right.
corner. Join the throngs of people going to Waterfire.
I'm going home.
Frank Carini, heading home, editor of EcoRI and co-founder, the environmental website that reports on a number of issues pertaining to anything environmentally related here in Rhode Island. Had the opportunity to talk. He had broken down a sort of an estuaries report here and talked actually an article this week that beach closures being down, seeing those trend numbers since 2000. Of course, you see it all the time, comes from the Department of Health. If pathogen and fecal levels are high enough, they will close beaches. So heartened by some trends in the numbers being somewhat downwards, but again, looking holistically at the Bay, just making his case for having continued concern about the impact of development on the health of the Bay. So something I'm sure we'll talk about